Manly man makeup is called war paint. War paint. War paint. War paint. Because war paint is what warriors use, and there's nothing more manly than being a warrior. And according to the outraged by everything crowd on Twitter, making manly man makeup for men is toxic masculinity and is only for manly men whose masculinity is so fragile they can't buy regular makeup without immediately afterwards killing a wildebeest with their bare hands to make up for being so girly and buying makeup in the first place. And that's just stupid on a level I can't even cope with. As a Gen X sardonic straight white nerd, it's probably not a huge shock to learn. I don't watch, and I don't like the self-proclaimed makeup guru subculture here on YouTube. I believe it's catastrophically dangerous and harmful to have such focus and import put on surface-level physical appearance and tie that directly to social worth. But it is a pretty popular trend, and as a way to start framing all this up, it'll work nicely so. Quite a few of the biggest makeup gurus on YouTube and Instagram, as it turns out, are indeed men. Often gay men, it's probably no surprise to anybody, as they have already spent most of their life dealing with not quite finding traditional masculinity a good fit for who they are, who they feel like they want to be, and who they want to be seen as. And so they reached for what was traditionally feminine things. But, in part, because that kind of stuff blazed a trail for a more complete personal expression, and in part because thanks to the toxins like Instagram fame placing more and more value on constructed appearance instead of genuine human worth, whatever the balance between toxic attention whore vanity or true socio-political growth, more and more young straight men are feeling freer to embrace the desire to use not just maintenance cosmetics to make their skin look fresh and soft and clean and smooth and such, but also makeup to enhance, alter and mask their natural appearance. I have worn makeup just a few times in my entire life. Spent about a week's worth when I was performing in a stage play, and a few more isolated events over the past decade or so for photography shoots where I was playing a model for a brand's ad campaign or some such thing, in my role as influencer. Now, I'm clearly not the target market for makeup, whether it's marketed as feminine, unisex, or hyper-masculine. I've just entered my 40s, I'm not part of high fashion society or some other profession where above average level of personal grooming and presentation would be expected of me. I'm just a Gen X YouTube dork, so unless I'm modeling for a shoot or whatever, I think it'd be more wildly distracting if I showed up wearing makeup than it would be any benefit to my personal appearance. But there are blokes out there who want to do more to affect their appearance than stylish shirts and faded in fluffy glued in place pompadour haircuts that they get maintained by a barber once per week, either for personal expression or for mere peacockery, trying to attract the attention of potential bedtime friends. But one way or the other, that does mean there is what we call a market. And where there's a new market, a new place to make money by selling things to people who weren't buying these things before, the people who want to make money off this growing market will do anything and everything they can to make sure every possible corner and permutation of this market is being advertised and sold to. It's like cars. They all do exactly the same damn thing. People fit inside them, they work as transport. People use them to get from place to place without having to walk there, and they also use them to move stuff from place to place without having to carry it there. Cars are generic. But you'll still see every possible permutation of car being made and marketed to every possible permutation of people. Manly cars that growl and thunder over dirt roads for the blue-collar working man. Family cars, soft and safe and placid. Cars marketed to people who like to think of themselves as adventurous and exciting and outgoing. Cars marketed to people who think they're stylish and of refined taste. Cars marketed to people who want to show off their financial success. Cars marketed to people who think that owning a plastic-bodied electric car filled with batteries made from rare and toxic metals, strip mined from remote locations, is a super-duper environmentally friendly way to live their life, and that they are personally saving this idiot planet. Seriously, just look up where these batteries come from, you dolts. Cars marketed to young women who think a cute little city runner that's easy to park reinforces their fun-loving, exciting, carefree, city-sophisticate lifestyle. Cars marketed to men who think a big, loud, powerful, fast car that roars like a horny lion if you even think about the shape of the accelerator pedal, which reinforces their own masculinity. All of these cars come from the same factories, same designers, same engineers. They share a vast number of common components and technologies. They are assembled by the same people using the same tools. It's just marketing, which tells you which car suits the image and lifestyle you want to present to the rest of the world. And that is, of course, where war paint comes in. A manly makeup made for manly men. A few of the people I follow on Twitter dragged this into my timeline over the weekend, and each of them was doing so by retweeting someone who was attacking the brand. So I looked at the replies and other retweets, and basically exclusively every response to this ad was just people, women, vastly outnumbering men, being pissy and bitter and aggressive and criticizing and mocking. Basically, it all came down to circling around what was being perceived as aggressively masculine marketing, and that's unacceptable to these women. And you bet the term toxic masculinity was being thrown around. I don't know whether you guys can hear it across the microphone here, but it seems appropriate that a big, loud diesel truck has just pulled outside my window and is rumbling away. Now, toxic masculinity is absolutely a thing. It is a corrosive and damaging force towards women, but also, perhaps even more so, towards men. Toxic masculinity is a very, very damaging thing to men. Turns them into cockjaws. But toxic masculinity is also a term that gets used way too often, and so loosely it's started to lose all context. These days it seems to get thrown at anything that merely acknowledges masculinity at all in any form. And so it was thrown at war paint. But war paint's marketing is not toxic masculinity, it's just cliche masculinity. I mean, look at the thing. Here's a big, square-jawed man, fit like he plays sports a lot, but not ripped to shreds like he spends 4 hours a day obsessed with himself in the gym. The ad is always shot from below to make this man seem bigger and more imposing. The opposite, by the way, of why almost all women take their selfies from a high angle, whether they know why they're doing it or not. It makes them seem smaller, gentler, more childlike. It makes their eyes seem bigger and more innocent, more infantile. And that is something that people are attracted to, because we are biologically programmed to treat children nicer than adults. If we didn't feel that way about kids, their behavior would force us to kill them all and we would become extinct. Our man makeup hero, meanwhile, he's covered in tribal-inspired tattoos. His watch is held on his wrist with the dried skin of a dead animal. He is smashing the makeup onto his manly face to smear on his war paint. Even has a big, cold steel metal ring that also has a skull. Oh my god, he is so man-tough, he wears death as an accessory. The only thing missing from all of this was a taxidermied buck's head hanging on the wall to show us all that real men are hunters. But here's the thing, as ridiculously masculine as all this is, there's nothing toxic about these traditionally manly things. No more than it's toxic femininity to wear a floral print sundress while delicately applying eyeshadow with a brush softer than a silkworm's fart. It's just cliché. It is an extreme. It is not inherently damaging to anyone for a man to simply embrace traditionally masculine traits, or for an ad targeting a product at men to present that product in a masculine aesthetic. I can't remember the last time I saw a truck ad that was accused of being toxic masculinity, even though they had a bunch of tough men doing tough things and throwing huge lumps of lumber around into the back of it and things like that. But I think because this is a traditionally woman's product being marketed towards men, somehow they feel threatened by it, perhaps? Like, this is our thing. You can't have this. I don't know. What I do know, though, is there's no need to demonize a man who wants to present himself as strong, large, bold, or even aggressive. Just like it is not toxic if a woman is bold, strong, aggressive, and presents herself as powerful. In fact, somewhat hypocritically, these exact same traits in women are very often celebrated and held up as glorious examples of role models for young girls by the exact same people who've been criticizing this product and its marketing for exact same attitude just because it's a man exhibiting the attitude, not a woman. We are slowly carving a culture where it's acceptable for a man to embrace his own femininity. And what it means to be a modern man has been evolving for decades, and that's a fantastic thing. I fully embrace that. When it is not also being corroded by the screeching of toxic masculinity towards anything merely overtly masculine. Back in the 90s, we called this kind of thing being a snag. A sensitive, new age guy, SNAG, snag. A bloke who wasn't afraid to be seen being gentle, loving, kind. A man who could cry and not be ashamed of it. But now we're at a point where we've evolved societal expectations of gender roles enough that even men who self-identify as especially masculine are open to buying and using cosmetic makeup. There'd be no point marketing this stuff to those men if those men didn't exist. Makeup. Something that in Western society for literal centuries has been girly, exclusively girly. The exact opposite idea of trying to project oneself as a manly man, a masculine man. And these idiots criticizing that don't see this as progress towards making every possible variant of what a man is expected to be and any and every position on the spectrum of personal sexual identity more accepted? They think this is an attack on that? No, it's progress towards that, you dolts. They screech in their Twitter slacktivist ways about acceptance and gender fluidity and how everyone's on the sexual spectrum somewhere, and yet they, in the same breath, deride, mock, attack, and bully any man who decides that he wants to sit at the end of that glorious spectrum they hold up as wonderful, that is bathed in testosterone-hued sunlight. They think marketing masculinity to masculine men is evidence that masculine men are fragile in their masculinity. And by inexorable direct extension of this attitude, what they are literally actually saying is that masculinity is unacceptable in their vision of modern society. And these people call themselves accepting and gender enlightened? They're idiots, hypocrites. The war paint makeup thing is just marketing, like the cars are just marketing. As many of the critics of this brand have been pointing out, the active ingredients are basically identical to an equivalent product marketed towards women, or as a unisex product already. Just like cars are made from the same bits. And as the war paint people have pointed out to some critics, the inherently different body chemistry of men, and the biological and medically recognized fact that men's skin is indeed different from women's. It is, as turns out in my research this morning, thicker by an average of 20%. It is prone to being rougher. Our pores are likely to be larger. We produce more sebum. Men's skin is biologically different, and it stands to reason that these biological facts may indeed lead one to believe that a product made for our skin might require a more specific formulation for skincare and makeup products tailored for men. But that's not really the point. That's not worth really arguing about. That's simple medical scientific fact. You can look it up yourself. Dermatologists will tell you this fact. Men's skin is different. But the point of all this, at its lowest level, almost all makeup is made for women, designed for women, marketed towards women. They come in little pink and pastel-coloured packaging in cases. It very commonly also carries feminine scents, bright, crisp florals and such. And not every man wants to smell like that all day long, either because they don't think it represents their personal image of who and what they want to be, or because they love that smell so much on their feminine romantic partner they would prefer not to smell of it all day themselves and become numb to it. Because we do become numb to smells. When's the last time someone reminded you to put on some deodorant when you couldn't smell your own body odor, for instance? And not every man wants the packaging on their products to present as feminine, just like how very few women's products come packaged with masculine-themed designs. How come it's okay for women's stuff to come in sort of women's fashion and sort of feminine styles, and it's not okay for the same product to be marketed towards men with a masculine style? Why the double standard there? Some men want to smell of traditionally masculine scents, leather, tobacco, woods like cedar, or warmer florals like hops. Warm, comforting, softly masculine scents that these men may associate with how they feel as a man and how they want to be seen or smelled as a man. The absolute hypocrisy of the people criticizing this aggressively masculine marketing is astounding. They will scream at anyone who tries to curtail any woman's sense of self-expression or unstoppably aggressively stomp down anyone who sneers at any non-heterosexual man's external representation of their own identity, including dressing up their face in the ways women would traditionally do their faces. But a hetero man? Instantly the devil and a figurative toxin to society itself for wanting to embrace and present a sense of traditional masculinity by choosing a personal grooming product that smells of sandalwood and comes in a black package. That's toxic, apparently. All that said, I do agree the ad was a bit over the top. It was a bit extreme, wasn't it? They went for it, I'll say that. But it did get attention, didn't it? And that's what an ad is supposed to do. People spread it around on social media rather virally. Perhaps for not the reasons they hoped the ad would spread, but it spread nonetheless. So I'd call it a pretty successful campaign so far. I would not have seen it, except for the outraged people retweeting their outrage at it. And I bet it would have been put in front of more than a few eyes just like mine. Men who are progressive, modern men, open-hearted men who have friends and acquaintances who are all over the self-identity spectrum. Men like me who have absolutely zero axe to grind against any person's self-expression of such identity so long as it causes no harm to anyone else. Men like me who just like the smell of warm, manly scents rather than apple blossoms and lavender. And I'm betting I'm not alone. There is a market for manly man cosmetics. They wouldn't have spent the money creating this product, this packaging style. They wouldn't have spent the money making these ads unless they had already done the market research and found out there are men who want this product. Men who aren't toxic masculinity men. I am not alone on this, I guarantee you. Even though one of the beard oils I have smells of mangoes and vanilla, and I love it. The one I wear more often smells of old leather and hops and fresh tobacco. I love that too.